Hey everybody, it's Christina of CraftyPaws. I'm here to share with you guys two quick and easy Halloween cards that I made for my DT project for Inloveartshop.com. The first one, I used the alphabet letter dies and some scrap Halloween style paper. I also decorated the inside, and I'll show you the whole process. The second card, I used the Halloween Words Stamps die set and some gold embossing powder. And again, I'll share with you guys the entire process, start to finish, of creating these two quick and easy Halloween cards. The first thing I did was just get out my alphabet die set, and I die cut a whole bunch of B, O, and O's. And then I took a piece of black cardstock for a card base, and then took some scrap paper that I had. I think this is graphic 45 paper, and I'm just cutting out kind of like a trapezoidal shape that I thought would add a little bit of interest, a little bit of a diagonal on the card front, and I wanted to make sure I got that clock with wings and the raven on the card front. And for a little edge, I decided I'd just use a little piece of orange cardstock and put on a little edge between the pattern paper and the black cardstock card base. I'm just using some glue. This is my favorite wet glue. It's art glitter glue with a fine nozzle tip. And I'm just separating out the patterned area and the plain area. Now I'm going to take my time and glue on the BOOs repeatedly all across the black portion. So this is black on black, and you would think that it wouldn't show up, but it actually shows up really well. The cardstock that I'm using here is extra thick premium cardstock, and so in some of the boos, I am just putting one layer of the cutout alphabets, and in some of them in alternating pattern, I am doing some with two layers. And I didn't want you to have to sit through watching me glue on all those boos, so I just skipped ahead, and then I'm cutting off the excess that hangs over the card front. And then I decided I also wanted to add a little bit of detail to that trim border, and I added some of the black cardstock, just really thin areas, just for little strips to add a little more detail and coordinate a little better with the pattern paper. For the inside, I'm using kind of a tangerine orange cardstock, and then I had one leftover BOO, so I thought I would just repeat that inside in the lower left corner. I just wanted to add a little bit of a finishing touch to the inside of the cards, which is one of the things I've been focusing on this year, not just decorating the fronts, but also the insides. And this is the finished card. I think it came out really cool looking, very graphic. Now for the second card, I'm using Versamark ink, and I'm using my EK Tools or EK Success powder tool, which gets rid of the static on the cardstock. And I'm laying out almost all the words from the Halloween word stamp set from Inloveartshop. And I'm just laying them all out in a diagonal with some spacing in between. So it says scary, real, ghostly greetings, haunting, Halloween, trick or treat, and there was a bat in there. I think the only stamp that I didn't use was happy, which would have gone with happy Halloween, but I wanted the bat more than I wanted the happy on this card front. So I'm just kind of fiddling with the spacing here, and I've got this on my stamping tool here, and I'm putting on some more powder so I make sure that there's no static left on the card front. And I am using Versamark ink, and I'm making sure I try to get a good impression. The haunting is a little sketchy, so I'm re-inking and going to stamp it out again to make sure I get a good coating of that Versamark ink. And I'm pretty satisfied with that. And then I've got a coffee filter liner, and I'm using Ranger Glitter Gold embossing powder, and I'm catching the excess in that coffee filter because that actually really does a good job of not getting glitter everywhere or embossing powder everywhere. And I'm just putting in the excess back into the bottle. I'm going to close that up carefully. And then I realized I did have a little bit of fine glitter on my craft mat, so I'm just taking a Swiffer dryer sheet, kind of dusting sheet, and I wiped off my craft space, and now I'm taking my heat tool and I'm going over the front as well as the back, because I didn't want my card stock to warp too much in one direction, and doing the front and the back helps kind of bend it in both directions, or otherwise keep it flat. And you can see the magic that is embossing. I love heat embossing and how it transforms. It kind of melts that powder into kind of a liquidy look, and I love that. I'm gonna just cut off the excess. I actually cut this cardstock a little bit bigger than I needed, so I'm gonna cut off the excess with my guillotine. And then I decided I wanted a little more interest, so I'm using an old decal Fisker's paper edger scissors, and I'm just cutting off the edge so that it has kind of a rough torn edge look. And then I have more of that scrap graphic 45 paper, and I wanted to make sure I had a little froggy showing and a Halloween stamp on one side and then bats on the other side. And I just wanted that little bit of orange just to give it a little extra pop of color on the edges. And then I'm going to use my guillotine cutter again to cut off the excess. And I wasn't too worried about keeping everything straight when I glued on the edges. So at this point, I need to take my time and kind of measure. I'm off camera there, but measuring and marking with my fingernail where I wanted to cut the edges of each of the orange strips on the sides. And then I come back to my guillotine cutter and I slice those off. And then I'm using my ATG tape runner to put adhesive on the back of that. And I'm going to glue that or adhere that into place on a card base that's from an old stash piece that I had. And I'm going to cut off the excess of that card base. And then I had like just an ephemera piece. It was like a witch silhouette with some bats flying in front of the moon. And so I put that up on foam adhesive and glued that or adhered that to the front. And then for the card liner, I again am using my decal Fisker's scissors, and I'm going to glue or adhere on a card liner just out of thin black cardstock. This is much thinner than the card base that I use for the other card. And then I had this little sentiment also from the same place that I had the witch silhouette from, and I love the font, so I thought I would put that on the inside. And that's the completed second card. I hope you've enjoyed this process video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to check out Inloveartshop.com and use the coupon code FSCraftyPaws for 15% off your entire order. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys are having a wonderful crafty day.